Sometimes a gimmick just isn't enough, and that's my opinion of the film Undertone. In summary, now this film was written and directed by Ian Chuason, I guess is how you pronounce his last name. This is his debut film, and I think as a debut, he did an amazing job. The main gimmick about this film, the marketing gimmick that we were given about this film, is that the sound is really going to freak you out. This really lays heavily on using sound to tell the story and to carry the horror, which sounds absolutely amazing. I mean, we pretty much live with earbuds in our ear. We love podcasts, which the main character is a podcaster. I thought that this was, one of the things that my nightmares are made of. I was once an audiobook narrator, and sometimes late nights I would kind of get the heebie jeebies. I would kind of just psych myself out, thinking, what if something demonic started speaking into my ears right now? I've had that thought more times than I can count. So when I first heard about this film, this sounded like something that was right up my alley. Unfortunately, that gimmick was pretty much the only good thing going for this film. Now, obviously, I'm a little late with reviewing this film. I actually wasn't going to review it, but I mean, most people seem to have a different opinion than mine, so I figured I'd go ahead and share mine. This film came out this past March. I got an advanced copy of the trailer, but I'm just now seeing the film on demand. And the main character, Evie, who's played by Nina Curie, I think is her last name, is once again a caretaker. In fact, I just did a review for Bury the Devil, where there was a woman named Julia who was a caretaker of a person with dementia. But in this story, the main character is Evie, and she's a caretaker for her actual mother. I'm not quite sure what her mother has, if she's locked in, if she's just simply terminally ill. But we do know that she for sure is terminally ill, but I don't know, what the affliction is. Perhaps it was cancer. I'm sure they said it in the film, but I didn't maintain that information. I'm sorry. So anyway, she's taking care of her terminally ill mother. Meanwhile, she's supporting herself through a podcast. And of course, this film does a great job of using cinematography to set the mood, to set the atmosphere, using that really dark lighting. The predominant colors here are black and red. Of course, when we go to the mother's room, we see a lot of blue and a lot of green, which kind of evokes the feeling of sickness. Poor Evie, of course, is pretty much a shut-in. She has to stay home. Well, I don't know if she has to, but she definitely chooses to stay home with her mother because, she doesn't move. She may need something. The one time she goes out, of course, she finds that her mother has fallen on the floor. While this is going on, Evie finds out that she's pregnant and she has a decision to make. And this leads us right into the crux of the horror of the film, because her podcast partner gets a hold of an audio file that they listen to, and she plays the skeptic and he plays the believer. And they're trying to decide whether or not they think this audio file is real, if this is really some type of demon possession, if this is something else. And of course, they end up messing around with a demon who likes to kill people's unborn children. At this point, everyone's already seen it. I don't need to tell you much more about the plot. The plot is quite simple. If I were to compare it to Bury the Devil, I'd say they were both equally simplistic, but the plot in Undertone is far more developed than the plot in Bury the Devil. It was very clear what was going on, and the plot was actually the audio files. We got to hear the progression of what was happening. We were able to jump to conclusions, what we thought was going on, if it was real, if it wasn't real, that sort of thing. But with Bury the Devil, it was so vague. I wasn't quite sure what was actually going on. So I will definitely give Undertone some credit for having a far better developed plot. That being said, the gimmick of the audio file is the only thing going for it. There were some issues I had with the film that made it impossible for me to ignore. For example, Evie's doctor calls her at like 3 o'clock in the morning to tell her her pregnancy test is positive, when she literally could have just bought a home test and figured it out herself. If she had gone to a doctor to take a pregnancy test, they would have told her within 2 minutes, because believe it or not, they're using the same damn urine tests unless they're doing a blood test for some reason. And even then, they're going to tell you on the spot. This isn't something that a doctor calls you at 3 o'clock in the morning to tell you about. And so I don't know if that was a mistake because this was written by a male and he probably wouldn't have thought of that, or if the internet theory is correct. The overwhelming internet theory is that Evie is in purgatory, and that's why things are happening the way they are. And when you consider what it's like to have to take care of a terminally ill person or an elderly person, it is like being trapped in limbo. You can't go anywhere, you can't do anything. Your life has stopped while you're waiting for theirs to fully end. And I could totally see that concept being, a probability. And so then that would justify the phone call coming in at the witch's hour, 3 a.m. It would also justify her being pregnant at that moment, having to make a decision. And now she's listening to an audio file that has the voice of a demon who kills unborn children. Again, this is a far more developed plot than Bury the Devil, but I still give both of these movies the same rating. I gave Bury the Devil 2.5 stars, and I give Undertone 2.5 stars as well. It did exactly what it set out to do. It gave a simple horror film that uses sound to terrify people more than anything. But once we're done with that, what do we have? I mean, in the theater, yeah, it was a great experience hearing that audio. I mean, coming in at you in digital surround sound. If you're watching it at home, you definitely want to wear earbuds, not headphones, but actual earbuds to really get a grasp of how spooky it is. But outside of that, the plot wasn't really that entertaining. I zoned out multiple times. I simply just was not interested. There weren't things lurking in the dark. And again, like with Bury the Devil, the cinematographer made great use of lighting to build this atmosphere, but they didn't do anything with it. Why not have something more happen in these dark and spooky corners and dark and spooky places? But it is an excellent first attempt by the director. I would definitely watch another film by him, but my overall rating for this film is going to be 2.5 stars. I guess I'm one of those people that just wasn't a fan of this movie like so many other people were. Let me know what you thought of Undertone. Did you give it a higher rating? Were you really scared by the audio? Because I sure wasn't. It was spooky, but it definitely didn't make the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I am author R.L. Raintree. Please take a moment to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to be notified whenever I post other reviews like this. And as always, thanks for watching.